because they happen to be Mexican Americans.
Half a century after Delores Huerta co-founded the United Farm Workers with Cesar Chavez, she still sees prejudice, and she still sees pain.
One young man committed suicide after they deported his family. And they don't understand the pain that children come home from school and all of a sudden there's no parents there.
While national reform is stalled, Huerta and the next generation of organizers are moving forward at the local level.
We basically organize the community so that they can start fighting for their rights, make them understand that they don't have to live this way.
One of those communities is in Hidalgo County, South Texas.
We have national issues because we're working on immigration reform. We have state issues because we're working on getting a driver's license for undocumented workers. And then we have county, which are very local issues.
Juanita Valdez Cox grew up in a family of migrant workers. She spent years working in the fields, and with her parents, she joined the United Farm Workers, the UFW.
When I grew up in a colonia, and we didn't have water. And Cesar Chavez was organizing, and Delores Huerta was here organizing, and that's exactly what Cesar told us. He said, at the end of the day, I have to go back to California. And who's going to live without water? It's you. Right, and so therefore we're here to train you, and my dad and my uncles and everybody, right, got together, organized, and they even developed their own water system. That's the power of people.
Valdez Cox is now the executive director of Lupe, a community group that began as an offshoot of the UFW. Lupe helps communities find their voice.
We have what we call a Cumbre de Colonias, which is the summit of Colonia residents coming together every 2 years.
None of these neighborhoods have residential lighting. They also want better drainage.
No drainage, no street lights, basic services for most American neighborhoods, but not necessarily all of them. Even if residents are paying taxes, if they aren't legal, there may not be lights.
Let's say that they may not have papers. They're old enough now that they have probably kids are American citizens. They have grandkids that are American citizens. By them grouping together and asking for stuff that most people have, I mean, how can you not want to help these people?
To have a huge group of people in this United States that sometimes are struggling to get street lights.
The one thing is that we find that in organizing the immigrant community, they are ready to be organized, but we have to somehow try to translate that power at a national level.
In the 1960s, Huerta famously galvanized the country by calling for a grape boycott. On the issue of immigration,
well, I guess we could boycott the Republican Party.
Huerta blames House Republicans for stonewalling reform both in the halls of Congress and back in their districts.
In our case, with Congressman Kevin McCarthy, they actually have kept their doors locked. So people can't even go in to talk to the congressman. And I'm talking about keeping it locked for months at a time. It's completely and totally deaf to the suffering of all these people out there that don't have documents.
In the coming months, Kevin McCarthy and his party are likely to face even steeper stakes when it comes to immigration reform and immigrants themselves. Joining me now is a Democratic representative from Illinois' 4th District and the chair of the Immigration Task Force in the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, Congressman Luis Gutierrez. Congressman, thank you so much for joining me on what should be a momentous anniversary, the passage of immigration reform. Of course, it is not. You heard Delores Huerta saying that advocates, community members try and get to Kevin McCarthy's office, but the door is locked. In your expert opinion, how much longer, Congressman, can Kevin McCarthy's door remain locked?
Let me tell you, we're going to unlock that door. We're going to unlock it one way, either because we reach a compromise with them and we do it legislatively, or we're just going to go to the ballot box. And look, I know a lot of people look dimly on the 2014 prospects, but let me tell you, the 2016 prospects are huge and greatly enhance our opportunity. Look, we're going to do this one way or another, but let me just say, we've done everything that Kevin McCarthy, that the Republican leadership has asked us. You know, Alex, they said they wanted to do it piecemeal. We said okay. They said no to the Senate bill. We said we'll craft the House bill. They said, hey, but Luis, we want to make sure, but everybody can't go straight to citizenship. We said, let's keep talking, even like that. It doesn't really matter how many concessions and how many times we have sat down. And no one more than I have sat down with Republicans to sit down and to say, let's discuss and find a way. And you know what we're doing right now? We're having a hearing criminalizing children and exploiting politically a humanitarian crisis at our border. We have Darrell Issa circulating a Dear Colleague letter in order to revoke the deferred action where 600,000 Dreamers today have the ability. And the Speaker of the House meets with the President of the United States, and his aides tell all the reporters he's getting ready to sue him for using his executive authority. Look, it is time for the President of the United States. He's our champion. He's the one I voted for. He's the one that we galvanized the community in supporting his re-election to stand up for our community. I think Barack Obama has been wonderful with the Republicans and patient with the Republicans. But look, it's time to consider that no is no. How many times do they have to say it's no before we recognize that it is time for the President to take action, to stop these deportations and stop the crippling and devastating effect our broken immigration system has on our families across our country?
Congressman, I got to ask you, I have been following this issue for a while, and for a long time, especially in the first term and the beginning of the second term of this administration, there was a sense that immigration reform advocates going to be patient, that they would wait for the White House to sort of take up the mantle, that it could be on a timetable mutually agreed upon. That patience seems to have now worn thin. You said it today on the floor of Congress, which is the waiting period is over. It's time for the President to take action. Is there friction between Democrats in Congress and this White House?
Okay, here's what I think. For 3 months, we have been stating as a community, as part of a broader community of activists across this country, we were going to give you till July 4th, Republican Party, to bring a proposal forward, or if not, we were going to demand that the President take executive action. But let me tell you, things have changed. You probably remember, Alex, back in May when the Hispanic Congressional Caucus was going to pass a resolution condemning the President on $2 million. He called us to the White House. He said to me, he said, Luis, I've instructed Jay Johnson to review all of the deportations proceedings to make them more humane. That's a step in the right direction. Last week, Secretary Johnson said he is preparing executive type actions that will help the immigrant community if the Republicans don't act by the end of July. I say let's stop waiting. There's no reason to believe that the Republican Party is going to do anything but exploit the issue politically. 20%, the most extreme part of their party, is just, it has a stranglehold. And that's unfortunate. I believe there are many, many good men and women in the Republican Party that want to do comprehensive immigration reform, that want to resolve our immigration system for a variety of reasons. But unfortunately, the leadership is never going to let them. It's a shame, Alex. Yes. Finally, in my 22 years in the Congress, more than 218 votes exist for comprehensive immigration reform, to reform our immigration system, and they won't give us a vote.
Let me follow up with you a little bit on the White House. Given the humanitarian crisis that's happening at the border, Jay Johnson is down in Nogales right now. The President has hard on this issue of deportations. Jay Johnson is still saying that is a huge piece of this. It seems like the White House is very much scrambling to deal with what was a completely unpredicted situation on the border. Nonetheless, how do you grade their efforts thus far in terms of interfacing with the governments of Guatemala and Honduras and El Salvador? We know that you were in some of these meetings with these leaders. Sure. They have been pushing back against the American government and saying, you guys got to deal with the problem too. What's going on there?
Yeah, well, let me just say that I think Secretary Jay Johnson, when he called this a humanitarian crisis and brought in FEMA, which is what we do when we have a crisis in our country, right? When he brought in the Red Cross, when he brought in Health and Human Services to treat and put the children in a safe place, you know what I said, Alex? I'm proud to be a Democrat. I'm happy they put them in that place because that is the response. I'm not sure that if Republicans, given their response in the Judiciary Committee and talking about ending relationships with Mexico and just jailing the children, which has been the response from many sectors of the Republican Party, I think he's done, given the unexpectedness of the situation, a great job. Now, we need to continue to protect the children. We need to continue also to work with El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala. We need to work with those three countries because, let's face it, they are turning into almost failed states in which these children are coming from because there's no one there to protect them. Let's protect the children and let's let democracy, let's let it thrive and be strong in those countries so the children don't need to make the treacherous road here to America.
Congressman Luis Gutierrez, it is always a pleasure. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you.